The Me&Him podcast. Well, here we are back again, the Me&Him podcast. How are you going, Dad?
Not too bad considering the circumstances.
Oh, let's hear about those circumstances.
Well, I've got a pile of boxes in the main lounge, which is still of the order of about 80 that haven't been opened.
80 boxes, all right. And just reverse a bit, that is because you moved house recently.
Oh, yes. I've been sleeping here in the new house since Monday of this week.
So let me ask you, how was it moving house at the ripe old age of 80 years old?
A fucking nightmare.
I can imagine. Yeah. Lucky you had an army of helpers. You just had people everywhere, which is a testament to you, admittedly. Got a good friend circle. I shifted to my last place on my own, so I got to do some work. I had a couple of Brazilians, actually. I lie.
It's funny you should say that, because the two men in a truck who came to move all the big stuff.
Right. Brazilian?
I asked them what language they were speaking. Yeah. And they said Brazilian Portuguese.
Yes.
And they were Brazilians.
That's crazy. It might have been my guys too.
They were fabulous guys.
I tell you, there's something about those Brazilian house movers. I mean, generally Brazilians are lovely, but it just these two. I've seen two lots of moves go on with Brazilian, like outsourced guys, two men in a truck. Well, look, anyway, we can digress and talk about moving, but I'm glad I made it safely and soundly, and you got your most importantly, you got your microphone set up right this time.
Well, I've been wrapped over the knuckles so many times by an expert. I had to get it right.
We've had issues, listeners. All right, so let's hook into this episode, and I'm so excited. I'm so happy and proud, as a proud father should be, that I have my youngest son, Cormac, on the call. He's the ripe old age of how old are you, Cormac?
18 years old.
18 years old.
Ripe and ready.
He's a man now.
And 65 years wise.
65 years wise. I don't even know what that means.
Yes.
Well, that means we have tres generaciones, 3 generations on the podcast today. We have Dad, you're a baby boomer, correct?
Correct.
And I am a Generation X. One would say the best generation.
Bullshit.
What? Even Cormac.
Stop exaggerating.
And we have a Gen Z in the house.
Yes,
representing. All right, feels like a game show now a little bit. All right, so let's. Cormac, thank you so much for coming on. Have you listened to any of our stuff before, our podcast?
I have. I listened to the first couple of episodes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It was great hearing you guys dive into these topics, even stuff I didn't know from your past and all that stuff. It was really enlightening.
The stories, yes. Well, there is 10 more episodes after that, mate. So get to work.
Yeah, I've got them all scheduled on my calendar.
Cormac, one of the reasons that I became enthusiastic regarding your father's suggestion we do this podcast is that I want to share the stories of the history of the family before I pass on. And there's a lot of information which is in my head. It's not written down. And in these conversational episodes, it comes out. And it can be recorded and held for the family to look at and understand.
Or even listen to.
Yeah, no, sorry. I meant look in the general sense.
Yeah.
And it's very important to me to be able to share the past because it's an oral story. There's nothing written down at all.
Yeah, and we've had the chance, Dad and I, over the years to record some stuff. I remember once we sat for a few hours and I recorded some video of you telling the story, but it wasn't as, I guess, easy to package as something like this. So we're recording a little bit of history, a bit of 3 Jeliciches on this call. And Cormac, so glad you could join us. What do you want to talk about today, mate? Is there anything, or are you just going to leave it up to me?
Well, I didn't come in with a notepad of ideas, so I guess I was just happy to take the ideas as they roll. So
okay, and yep, that's cool. Dad, what do you want to talk about?
At some stage, the future, but probably later in this episode.
The future, and how would you? What specifically?
We have 3 generations, and we have 3 different perspectives on the future.
Okay.
Our individual futures.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I have actually something that I would like to cover, and I know, Cormac, you and I have chatted over the years, and I've learned a lot of lessons personally, and I've tried to convey them to you in a way that would be useful, would help you. And one of the areas I'd like to sort of chat about is a young man's relationship with women and dating, or dating in general. And because I can speak to it from my perspective, it's a little bit different as a Gen X. I don't have your opportunities.
It's called Tinder,
Right.
isn't it?
It's Tinder. Nah, Tinder's old hat now, Dad. I don't know. Cormac can fill us in. I don't even know what's going on. There's probably, but look, I thought that might be interesting, just relationships in general, and in a perspective from a Gen Z on how he sees that world. Because it's different. I've certainly got my perspective. So you up for something like that? Is it not going to be too delicate for you, mate?
Oh, it's really sensitive, so I don't know if I can. It's a bit of an overload at the moment. No, I'm absolutely happy to speak on stuff like this. I mean, I don't have too much information to give, as I've kept myself.
Well, I'm not asking about your
celibate in that
specific. I'm not asking
Just
your
my
specific-
takes on the idea.
Yeah, exactly, man. Perspective. We're not going too much, share any dirty details there. All right, so you guys you strapped in, ready to go?
Hang on.
Got
Got my seatbelt on.
Yeah, okay. Cormac,
And I've checked my parachute.
let's do it. The Me&Him podcast. So it's so great to have you here, Cormac. Love hanging with you. You're always very, very active. I believe you were like MMA practicing or fighting today. What were you up to today?
Yes. So I went to the park with a couple buddies. We ended up sparring for a while. I was just trying to introduce one of my best mates into the scene and just get his instinct sharp.
So Dad, Cormac is not only very fit, not only a bit of a gym junkie, but also now starting to practice fighting, mixed martial arts, I believe. Super into his fitness, and puts me to shame a little bit. I mean, I try to stay fit. I try to. But I thought it might be a nice place to start to talk about fitness and well-being, because it's definitely changed through the generations, right? And I certainly have, it kind of came into favor when I was in my 30s, and I kind of missed out that early kind of thing. So I'm interested in talking about it generally, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this, Cormac. But Dad, what was it like when you were growing up? What was the focus on that stuff?
There wasn't a focus on that stuff, and there was no industry either. I mean, okay, you did boxing or wrestling.
Right.
There were professional
At school?
sports. No, in gyms and so forth. That wasn't at school. At school,
There's
you
PE
were
and
taught-
stuff, right? Physical education.
There was also that transitional phase where you either dress up in Air Force uniforms or Army uniforms, and you march and
really?
have parades. Yeah.
They do that as a drill sort of thing.
Yes.
Wow.
And I because I was a nutcase with regards to aeroplanes, I participated in the Air Force cadets.
Oh, cool. So that was a
And
way
this
of what
was at school.
kind of, it sounds like they were preparing you for war, to be honest with you. But so that was a way of sort of almost being in a team sort of environment and doing drills and fitness.
Yes. Yeah. And coordination and learning discipline. It was very important. Remember, these were only 10 years after the Second World War.
Yeah.
And economies and nations everywhere were pretty sensitive on the issue of defence.
So correct me if I'm wrong, are you associating sort of general fitness, and gym sort of stuff with actual sort of this military discipline that you experienced at school?
Yes, that was part of it. It was a component part. There was an emphasis on track and field.
Right, yeah, sure.
I was good at the shot put, and I was a reasonable long-distance runner.
Okay, so athletics was something, I guess, Olympics and everything always.
Yeah, there was a lot of sport, a lot of physical activity, and of course, New Zealand's rugby mad. So,
of course, yeah. Everyone played rugby.
I was in the school first 15, etc. So we had many opportunities to do two things: burn off the energy which young men have.
Yep.
In their bodies, especially teenagers, and also coordinate with other members of the group, whether it was a football team or cadets marching, so that you got out of yourself and you looked at the greater good of the unit.
Of the team, yeah.
Of the team.
Cool.
So I played a variety of sports. I played hockey, tennis, rugby, athletics, etc.
Well, yeah. I mean, look, you always were very strong, and I guess Granddad was the same. I guess we take it for granted that I was told once, I had good genes, and it was by someone who knew this stuff, and it made me think about how lucky I have been to inherited genes from a strong lineage. To be able to do those things.
There are very strong genes that run in our family.
So that's interesting. I'll give you my take on it, and then Cormac, I'd love to hear yours because I know you're super into that stuff, right? So for me, we had to do sports and stuff at school, but today I jog, right, or I'll go for a beach run, or I'll go out and run. I never saw joggers, and if I did in the 70s, they were usually wearing these shorty shorts and looked like some weirdos, and it was a strange thing to watch people run around. You're like, what? Why are you running? And it's like, it's good for you. And I've heard through Mum actually that my grandpop, her father was actually right into fitness and running and doing exercise and stuff way before it was trendy, way before maybe the science had made it almost like a staple of people's well-being.
Your grandfather on your mother's side was a very disciplined. He was in the army, and he fought well. He was a national representative in rugby in Canterbury.
Right.
He made the best of himself. He was probably Damien's stature, height. But he really excelled.
I remember when I was a kid and I would go around to their place, his nan and grandpapa's place, and every time I saw him, he'd go, how are you, son or grandson? And he'd shake your hand and hold it really hard, and then he'd feel your bicep and go, oh, look at that, you're growing a big muscle there. And he really valued fitness, right? And so if I could just touch on mine, and then Cormac, I want to throw to you. I wasn't really interested in running around and killing myself on a track and field, and I got slammed into the ground so many times by big Polynesians when I played rugby, in New Zealand, that I was like, this isn't working. I think I ended up playing badminton for a while, thinking, at least I won't get hit and hurt doing this.
It's possible, son.
Yeah. But I didn't really kind of get involved in a lot of exercise until later in life, where I realized that, the running and the swimming and the morning calisthenics and things were really good for me mentally as much as physically. All right. So it's taken me decades to really understand that it's part of a rounded human being to have some sort of physical life as much as a cerebral life, as much as a spiritual life, right? You got to have a few things going, and part of it is the discipline, which you mentioned that word of just committing yourself to something to achieve a goal, maybe weight loss, maybe just to get a bit of a six-pack going, or lift some weights and hit 140 kilo, whatever. So I think there is now, it's changed so much, and it's changed right in the middle of my growing up, where that became something, first the gym and Arnold Schwarzenegger and bodybuilding, and then to other things. But Cormac, from your perspective, I might just ask you a very broad question, you can take it any way you want, but what role does fitness and well-being play in your life as a Gen Z, as someone who's kind of growing up after, all of these things have become available?
So in my experience, I'm not sure if I can speak for the general populace of my age, but it's always been a big thing since I was young. I kind of grew up into it. My school was very sports centered. I was a very competitive kid. We had a lot of sport activities going on, like rugby, handball, all these things. And I grew a very big competitive drive at the point. So I ended up developing a lot of different skills that kind of aided me currently. And only recently I've seen the value in what I have been doing, because I see a lot of people my age who only are starting just now to get into it, and they don't have the foundation that I have. I want to touch on what Granddad said about how it was very team focused in the past.
Yes.
And although there's a lot of activities in my school that were very team focused, it seems to be becoming more of an individualistic thing at this point.
That's exactly what I was thinking when he was talking too, that it has become more individualistic.
Yes, and with all the information out nowadays, especially with supply and demand, people want to create profit over certain people's desires. And as fitness has come more into light with nowadays,
it's an industry.
There's a lot more influences, there's a lot more science backing on it, and it's very easy to access. So especially with social media, people who even have the shred of idea that they want to get into fitness, things will pop up in their feed. They'll get more motivated in that way, and they'll open up a pathway for them to get into it.
Wow.
But yeah, it's been a very, very big thing in my life. I very, very much enjoy it. Just the endorphins getting released, and just the feeling of being strong and capable is something that I
and you are,
definitely
mate.
value.
Yeah, sorry, Dad, you go.
Can I interject here? Cormac, I will never, ever forget seeing you when you were much younger doing incredible things on that trampoline. You were at it all the time, and you did backflips and so forth. And oh God, you must have been 6 or 7 or something like that.
Yeah.
And those memories of you will stay with me forever.
Yeah, and another thing about it is today, actually, while I was training at the park, I actually taught someone I haven't seen in a while. I used to kind of help him out with his fitness journey at the gym. I saw him today, and I actually helped him learn a backflip today. It was something he was really interested in, and got it learned in a few minutes.
Can I interrupt there? I want to hear more of that, but when I first saw Cormac pull a backflip off, I think my stomach flipped. Right, because I'm like, and you already been practicing on the trampoline, and then you did one on what do you call it on hard ground, or
you did one on concrete.
You
failed the first.
Yeah, I know.
You failed the first time. You didn't crack your head, but you mastered it, and I went, wow.
Well, look, so it's very unnerving when you see your kid doing these full-on tricks. I remember when the first time you did a cork, off the ground, and I was like, oh my God, like you're giving me heart palpitations there. But you were always very focused on that. And I wonder, Cormac, do you think that was partly because it was a means of, something you can control, something you can focus on, something you can better yourself? Like, what was the driver for you to, do you think, because I know you were young when you started that, but to spend so much time honing that skill? Because not many people do that, or maybe in the way you did.
So there's a few reasons. I think there's quite a few variables here. It'd be hard to pinpoint it. I'm not really sure if I can dip into that mindset back when I was younger, but the things I could relate it to is competitive drive. So when things would become a trend, especially with early access to YouTube, we'd see people doing
that was
these
it.
things.
You learned so much from YouTube. I noticed that.
Yes,
you got good very quickly.
And I'd see people do this, and I'd be like, wow, that's awesome. I'd like to just give it a go. And that was a massive driver for it. Just it also could be it could be related to the feeling of freedom. That's something that's kind of popped up. So while you're in the air, you're basically, it feels like you're lifted of any restraints.
It's a leap of faith, literally, right?
Yeah.
Because when you do that backflip, Cormac, you say you've told me you have to be in the zone. You've got to kind of check yourself, and then you commit. You said the word commit.
So commitment's a big thing. At some point, it just comes muscle memory, and you're able to kind of just do it through reflex. But yes, taking that first leap of faith over breaking that fear barrier is something that just will stay with you for life. And I've taken that and I've kind of put that into mixed martial arts, because it's a much, much sharper, harder version of that, where you have to get into their space, you have to conquer that fear, handle the pressure, and just try to perform while things are getting thrown at you. So yeah, I think it's a very similar thing, and it just builds a lot of character.
Wow. So, Dad, this is where I respect Cormac so much, not only his commitment and, the reason I was asking is motivation, because, being the youngest child, I think you had, there was lots of other stuff going on, so you had to kind of make your own fun, and you decided, because you were competitive, that, you were learning some stuff, you're going to try it out, you had a trampoline, and you always had a trampoline more or less, right? And then you've been working at a trampoline gym and everything, right? So, but that amount of fitness you got from that, amount of focus, the amount of discipline, and then that whole leap of faith you're talking about, that's where I would go like, wow, that must resonate in your life in so many other ways, where you can break that barrier.
And that's something I try to inform people of, especially mainly with mixed martial arts. I do teach this gymnastic stuff to kids, and I don't really push it as that idea. I kind of just kind of sugarcoat in the way they'd like to hear it, like, oh, this would be awesome, you feel so good about yourself. But with mixed martial arts, I just tell people, like, the instincts you grow from being in that space is unbelievable. Just being able to push past that feeling. It's like Will Smith once said, when skydiving, past the point of maximum fear is bliss. It's that's when, once you start hitting terminal velocity,
And
that's when you
dopamine.
start really enjoying it. The endorphins fly. It's just, you got to push past that initial barrier to feel the satisfaction.
So, Dad, I think he's an adrenaline junkie.
It's something I want to do. Wingsuiting, base jumping, all that stuff. I want to give it a go in my lifetime.
Speaking of adrenaline junkies, I remember someone who's with us telling me about what he did at school when he was skateboarding, and he would get a group of innocent school children to lie down, and he would fly over them. Now, that's taking a leap of faith too,
You're
son.
talking about me here?
Yes, I am.
I think being the last person lying down has taken the biggest leap of faith.
So true. I don't think I ever landed on anyone, but I did get to a point where I could jump 4 or 5 people. So yes, I've got my little taste of that as well, no doubt. So you're doing the mixed martial arts, Cormac. Fitness plays a very important role in your life. I was going to ask you, what's your aspiration for the future? I know we want to talk about that a little bit later, but one thing that I thought would be very interesting to touch on is the idea of doing stunt gym training, because that is something that's come into your world as a sort of a natural byproduct of you doing the fitness and being very active and also sort of looking after yourself. You started doing a bit of stunt training, which I thought was so cool. Tell us, where's that at, and what are you planning?
So I'll be joining the stunt course next year, where it'll be a year course to get my certification, maybe longer. I'll have to put my foot forward, make sure I'm learning all the content. But pretty much the aspiration for it was I was already in the space. I see people doing these things on movies, and I see the cash flow that goes into it. I see the traveling. So there's a lot of perks that come with it. And as I'm thinking more and more of career-based options, and ways I can actually set myself up in the world, I saw that as a great opportunity, because I'm definitely not one to be strapped down to a desk. I never found it I never found it interesting. I just couldn't. I was always one to be outside and be training.
Yep.
So just seeing that opportunity and knowing that I do have a pathway there, it was just something I really wanted to dip my toes in.
I can see the movie headlines now.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Once upon a time in Avalon.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt
That'd be a pretty good title. Once Upon a Time in Paradise. So everyone does just translate to paradise.
Yeah. He's in Bugola Plateau now, Dad. Anyway, Hey, so look, that's part of touching on the future, but it's also, I think there's a bigger message here too about leaning into what you love and leaning into your strengths, and no pun intended. I saw, and Granddad saw, how dedicated you were to that fitness area, and I've encouraged it with your gym and all the rest, and your mum's encouraged you with the stunt side of things. It's so good to see that that's actually something you're passionate about too, because now you can use that fitness and that skill and that discipline to actually maybe carve out a bit of a career in something you love. Absolutely.
That's definitely the end goal. Definitely something I want to move into.
I think, grandson, you've unconsciously, for the first 6 or 7 years, been training yourself for a future of the kind you've just described. And you acquired all the basic skills just by doing something for fun. And I mean, I'm harking back to your trampolining. And then you just got better and better. And as you've grown up, you've put all the pieces together, and you're now looking at a whole, like the stunt work, which we all admire.
Yeah.
And we're so happy for you.
Well, if there's anyone out there, any producers who's looking for an 18-year-old super stud who can do standing corks, just contact the Me&Him podcast. And I'll take my agent's commission. All right. Well, look, hey, that was a nice little foray into a bit more about you, mate. Big future ahead. I'm very excited to see how it blossoms. And but I wanted to move into another subject, a subject about relationships, around just what your generation does, how they look at that stuff. And I thought it might be interesting. We'll start with Dad again at your age, like Dad at 18, and how he viewed that thing. I'll then give you my 2 cents. Throw to you for the insights.
Okay, and the thing is?
Dating and relationships.
All right.
You good to go?
Brace yourself.
Let's do it. The Me&Him podcast. So here on the Me&Him podcast, we've discussed stuff from 2 different angles, from Dad's, upbringing in the 60s and 50s and 60s, and then mine more in the 70s and 80s. And now we've got Cormac here. What were your decades? Well, you actually haven't reached your second decade yet, but or you actually have reached your second decade, but not your third, right? Is that correct?
Yes. Well, I'm kind of on my second decade, yes.
Yeah. All right. So we've got 3 different perspectives, and I thought it would be really interesting, as we alluded to in the intro, to talk about. And I don't mean to pigeonhole into dating, and I don't want it to be personal or anything like that, but it's more about, because we here, in this podcast talking about men's perspective on things and sharing our stories so that people can either relate or they can maybe pick up an idea or maybe have something to contribute, who knows, right? But the issue of having relationships and sustaining, firstly, meeting someone, sustaining it, right? And then growing from it is such a massive topic for anyone, any sex, but particularly for men in this time and place. It seems to be fraught with the dating apps and the social media and the image consciousness and all of that sort of stuff. So I'm interested in your perspective on this, right? So, but what I thought it might be good is to sort of throw to Dad and hear about, which you've spoken a little bit about in the past, Dad, about at Cormac's age, at 18, what was it like for you going out into the big wide world of dating, and how did you meet girls or boys, but I think it's girls because we're here, and how did that all work for you? And then we can sort of all share our perspective. That wasn't a slight, by the way. I was just trying to be inclusive.
No. I will give you what you asked for.
All right, shoot.
Let's set the baseline. I was an only child. There was friction between my parents. It was a very hard, deprived world. We were very poor. We had a gas stove, but we had no lighting and no real facilities. The toilet was outside, but down 35 steps to the ground. And so I grew up very self-conscious. I didn't know when I became a teenager that I was good looking, because I was just so bloody hung up. However, I was very intellectual, and it did not help at all when I went to teenage parties, when you at school, 15, 16, that sort of thing. And I thought everybody wanted to discuss life, death, the universe, when all they wanted to do was to play the latest records and get down and dirty. So I had a very late upbringing and education in that dimension. And I've always been self-conscious. I had to make an effort to overcome that because there was psychological damage from my family circumstances. And there were no such things as psychologists or therapists those days. You just had to do the hard yards on your own.
Well, sounds like your relationships helped you with your psychotherapy, maybe.
Later on, they did.
All right.
But you probably started at least 6 or 7 years younger than I did, because I was so stunted in my development.
When did you first do the deed? Well, how old were you?
18.
18. I think I was 14, but I wouldn't officially count it till I was 16 because I really didn't know which part went.
And it was set up by a friend of mine.
Maybe. Cormac, if you don't mind me asking, when did you do the deed?
17.
17. All right. So it's actually, so I feel like Gen X maybe started to run away and just think that you got to get into all that stuff quick, which is not necessarily the best thing to do.
Oh, I think part of that was you, son. You've always been an early opportunist.
Yeah, right. All right. So you were a bit awkward. You had some trouble sort of mid-80s.
I was very hung up.
So how stressful was it for you back in that day where you had to go and approach a girl, or did they approach you?
Well, I think they did because, as I said, I didn't know I was good looking.
Very, very.
But because I was so self-conscious, I think I put them off.
Right. Okay.
Look, with the passage of time, I learned from my early mistakes, and during the period, the many decades that your mother and I have been divorced, I've made up for lost time.
So you know what? I'm going to switch it up a bit. Cormac, I want you to respond to that and give Granddad your perspective, like on being your age and hearing what you heard from him and how you approach the whole situation.
So it's a very, very different ball game within my age group. With social media, the self-conscious thing you touched on, Dad, has become amplified about 50 times. It's very undercover, but since there's such a position of portraying an image online, people have become obsessed with the idea of how people see them. So, yeah, there isn't as much of a stigma about trying to lose it as early as possible, just trying to be liked as much as possible. And that's a really big thing with people's attention spans nowadays. With social media, they have a lot of dopamine firing whenever they're on their phone. It's pretty much it's pretty much a drug. They're constantly on it. They're constantly craving attention, craving dopamine, and they get that from positive compliments from other people. They get that from social interaction. They get it from a lot of things. But people are depraved nowadays. They're very isolated, stuck in their own head, which is horrible. There's a lot of anxiety and depression, which I think is directly correlated to it. I don't think they would be there if we didn't have our phones and we were much more in tune with each other. Yeah, from my own perspective, I've kind of steered clear from the path, just due to seeing a lot of people. Most people are broken. Most people look for the wrong things in other people.
They're insecure, yeah? They're looking to feel something that they think they don't have.
Exactly. And they don't really take the time to work on themselves and their own shortcomings. They just kind of look for someone else to kind of make them feel like they're whole again. And it's a really, 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 really big issue I think social media has just brought up. And it's sad seeing a lot of people like that nowadays.
You use the word amplified, right? And I told Dad this in a previous episode, but he's 80, he forgets things, so I'm going to repeat it now.
What did you say? I can't hear my boy.
Call the ambulance. No, he's still here. All right. So I drew a picture years ago when I thought I'd worked out how it all works. I drew a picture of these figures standing around with mirrors on their faces in a circle and a dotted outline of a character in the middle. And I wrote the phrase, "People are as mirrors but for to see oneself." And I thought I'd worked out that who I was what was reflected back in from their eyes. And that's how I formed my identity. And I thought, oh, no, I've had a breakthrough in thinking here. So the more that I can sort of bring my self-image up in their eyes, the better I will feel. And oh my God, it took me 10, 15, maybe more years to realize that I have to create my self-image and then it's reflected back to me as almost I can. It's a natural cycle, but it starts with me. Does that resonate to what you're saying, Cormac?
Oh, excuse me, Cormac.
Yes.
Son, I didn't realize you were corrupted that early.
Corrupted. Well, I think Cormac talked about the need to be liked. Right? I need to sort of. So I was looking to make people smile and get validation as a way to fill an incomplete part of me. And when they smiled at me and liked me, I felt good. And if they were short or curt with me, I felt bad. Even though I didn't know what the hell was going on in their mind, I thought it was about me.
Yeah, and with social media, and I love the word validation for it because people look to validate themselves with things like likes. So if they post a post on Instagram, they'll spend an hour just trying to make sure the post is as aesthetically pleasing. It portrays an image that they would like other people to see, and they judge themselves of not how well they think they put out the post, or judge themselves by how many likes they got and how other people responded to what they put out there.
Not how proud are they of the content or what they're sharing.
Yes,
it's
even if
how do people respond?
Yes, and even if they achieved something and they wanted to share it with people, it was less about that they achieved it and they're trying to spread positive vibes to other people.
Yeah.
It was more about what they could get out of other people to validate themselves.
Wow.
So there is one more big thing I'd like to touch on about the situation of my generation, and that is pornography. It is the biggest, most terrible thing that has happened to my generation because of the ease of access. It is one of the most stimulating things the brain can experience as human beings, as biological organisms. We're not supposed to be introduced to that level of
Sensory overload.
We're not supposed to be shown all these images of this many different attractive women throughout our life. We're supposed to be very confined to our own tribe, find different qualities we'd like. And it really has screwed up people's perceptions and standards of other human beings.
Of who they want to date, right?
Things. Yes, yes. So
they have an image. and what that person will do.
Yes, and this relates seriously to young men because as young men are having much, much ease of access, one thing is that their standards rise. But the main point that is derived from this is that they also spend so much time inside pouring their energy into jacking off to this pornography that honestly they don't have. They try.
I love it.
What we're supposed to do with this sexual drive is it's an abundance of energy. We're supposed to use it to form ourselves to actually achieve what this energy is pushing us towards, which is to procreate. And the energy is constantly expended. Men have zero drive, zero motivation, and this is one of the most primal motivations you can get to improve your well-being, to improve everything about yourself, which in turn improves your sexual attractiveness. Just being more confident in yourself, being more well built up, physically more capable. All these things contribute vastly towards sexual attractiveness between genders, more so to the men's side. And a term that's popped up recently is incels. People who stay inside, they stay on their phone, they are totally absorbed with the online world and how other people portray them. They are pretty much losers.
Watching porn.
Yes, they constantly indulge in it, and it's probably the biggest issue to people's self-esteem there is in this generation. Second to social media. It's something
so it's got
that is
out of
very
control,
hard to
is what you're saying. Like in my generation, Cormac, I had I think I had access to the National Geographics first, where some African lady had her boobs out, and I was like, woo. And then Dad had a collection of penthouses, which apparently, us as kids we found, and we were looking through. And sorry, Dad, to give away the ghost, but you've shared the story before. And he thought it was quite innocent and fun, quite funny because we didn't. I think me and my sister were looking at it. And we were young, and we didn't know what the hell we were looking at. But it was magazines, and even then they were hard to get hold of. Right, you had to be 18 or find one somewhere or whatever. And then I tell you what, now,
son, can I interrupt you?
I've opened the door here.
I've got to finish the story for you, Cormac. They were sitting on my bed, leafing through these magazines, and I knew they were far too young to understand, penthouses and Playboys and so forth. And then my ex-wife, his mother, came to pick up the children and take them back home. And she said to me, "Where are they, Matt?" I said, "They're in the bedroom." She said, "They're so quiet." I said, "Yeah." And I forgot what they were reading.
Father of the Year Award.
Look, and she ripped the crap out of me. You got no idea. And I said, "Diana, lower your voice. The kids don't know. It's bad stuff. Yeah. They're too young."
So I guess it was kind of innocent then, but I guess to your point, Cormac, it's now so ubiquitous. It's almost, and I think I know where you're going with this. There's a certain amount of tension we need to create in this world, right? There's a certain amount of energy we need. And we build that up through self-discipline. We build it up through practice. We build it up through not expending that energy at the drop of a hat. And the more energy we have, the more we can do. We can be motivated. And you talked about sexual sort of transmutation. I think Napoleon Hill called it in his book Think and Grow Rich. It was one of the most powerful drivers. It is one of the most powerful drivers. And to use it like something to shape your life. Is that kind of where you're heading with this? And you're saying right now it's almost an epidemic for your generation?
It is an epidemic, but one of the biggest problems with it is its ease of access. With the younger generation, people are getting introduced to it as young as 9 years old. I know people who've gotten into it at 8 years old, and it really skews their perception of other people from such a young age because they don't actually know it's an issue. They have no idea. People don't know how much of an issue they have because they do it every day. They watch porn every single day, and they have no idea that their brain is
the damage it's causing.
Before they go to bed, they have to do it before they go to sleep because their brain is so hardwired to get that dopamine hit to actually fall asleep, to get drowsy. And you'll talk to people and they'll be like, yeah, I jerk off every day. And I'm like, do you know that's like quite literally a horrible thing to do to your body and your brain? And they're like, well, no, people said it's healthy. Just like, it's normal, right? It's normal.
Isn't there something called, they call it seminal retention or something like that?
Yes, it's a very big thing on self-discipline, marketing. Semen retention is one of the most important things ever. It also is one of the most disciplinary things ever. I've tried to do it as much as possible, and I've succeeded in some ways and then failed.
Yeah. There's the drive.
Struggle, because I've done it since a young age, so it's a really hard habit to break. It's harder than any other addiction I've ever had to.
Wow. That's quite a big topic, Cormac. Like, I didn't expect you to drop it at this point, but it does make sense that it links to our relationship with the opposite sex because it's potentially draining our reserves, our energy, the way we present ourselves.
Yeah, but it's not seen as an issue, which is my big point.
And it's not firewalled behind you have to be 18, put in your credit card details, even if it's no charge. Like, firewall that stuff.
Yeah, that's the...
Like, block it. Pay, some gateway.
To avoid legal trouble, they've put up a sign saying, "Are you over the age of 18?" You have to click one fucking button, and it's so easy to stumble upon as a kid on the internet. It really.
I agree. I think something needs to be done, and I'm not some religious zealot myself. And I'm like most guys, it's a big industry. Most guys are into it, but to hear it so viscerally from your perspective in terms of how it's affecting how boys and girls relate to each other and how it's creating this incel genre, which is so self-destructive. I think we might have to knock off that last part, another day.
Son, it's called SDS, Stormy Daniels syndrome.
The Me&Him podcast. Well, we lost Cormac, and I'm keeping it rolling because he was on a roll there. I didn't realize actually we were going to talk about the porn industry. I didn't put him in that position, but he brought it up. But I really understand where he's coming from. What did you take from that, Dad? Like, what, from his perspective, who he is as a young man, and also his generation and how he sees others, how it's kind of it's handbraking them from achieving other things.
He's a very, very introspective is the wrong adjective. Perceptive young man.
Totally.
Most males of his age would not be that perceptive and would not be that articulate. He said it correctly. It's a huge problem. And that coupled with the business of judging your self-esteem by the number of likes that you got,
yes,
has... experts tell us has contributed to the very high level of teenage male suicide in our society.
And also lone wolves and especially in America, men who go off the rails at a young age, grab a AK-47 so there's this double compounding issue of the image portraying yourself to, looking for validation through others, and then also seeing and it's almost like a dopamine leak that you've got going on watching porn, so you're depleted from your natural energy resources. So really, what a cauldron of dysfunction that is potentially rife across his generation. He seems very passionate about it.
Yes, and it's refreshing to hear a young man talk that way. Very few would talk like that.
I know. Wow,
Very few would see the world and the issues as clearly as he does.
So we started talking with him about fitness and health, and he talked a lot about self-discipline and crossing the fear barrier. And then we pivoted to sort of relationships and what have you. And to be honest, I was a bit kind of interested in hearing how he perceives, because I know he figures I'll look after myself, fit my own oxygen mask, and then I will put myself out in the world, but I'll do it on my terms, sort of thing. Whereas I was opposite. I was sort of chasing, I guess, female validation, which I've attributed to some degree not having you around enough when I was younger, and I look to please women, I guess, to some degree. It's taken me a long time to realize I don't need that, but he seems to got that right from the get-go.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, he's better than both of us at that age. My God.
Well, that's good. That's a testament. We're making better offspring as we go.
Thank God things are improving.
I'm kind of optimistic.
I'm the worst case, and you're half the best.
Oh my God, made so many mistakes. And look, hey, that being said, I've got high hopes for Cormac, but if he does fall, which we're all fallible, we'll be there. We love him. We'll be there to support him. But it seems like he's on a good track.
If he does fall, he's got the inner fortitude to pick himself up, learn the lesson, and get on with it. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. Well, it didn't end. It ended kind of abruptly, but I think I think we may have to bring him around for another guest episode. We'll see what the listeners say, and how this resonates with Gen Zs out there.
We should have been recording the conversation that we've just been having.
Oh, don't worry, I have been recording it. So that's why I'm the producer, because I always try to keep things on track and make sure we get something at the end of these things.
No, I mean, you must be incredibly proud of that boy.
Oh, he's an absolute blessing. He's a beautiful man. And, he's teaching me a lot about myself and just, some of those self-discipline habits that he has are aspirational. So anyways, well, look, we're going to wrap it up. I will leave you back to your evening, and thanks for another very engaging episode. So good to have Cormac here, 3 generations. I think we're done.
Yes.
So it's good night from him, and it's good night from me.
2 Ronnies will depart.
The Me&Him podcast.